Eye of the Beholder by Ruth and Nordin, Chapter 15. It was a sunny, cool morning in the middle of March when Mary joined Dave in going to town. She pulled the shawl around her shoulders and enjoyed the wagon ride as he brought her closer to him. Giggling as he sprinkled kisses on her cheek and neck, she hardly noticed the scenery. When they reached the mercantile, he asked, "Are you going to do any visiting?" "I would like to see Jenny and Sally," she said. "I think I'll go check on Joel and see how he's doing." Dave jumped out of the wagon and jogged to her side. She accepted his hand as he helped her down. Joel worked for Ralph at the mercantile. She did wonder what he thought of transporting goods to and from the store. She hoped he liked it more than farming. Dave held her for a moment, seeming to be oblivious to the fact that other people walked by them. "I could give you a ride to Jenny's, or even Sally's." His breath caressed her ear. The corners of her mouth turned up. "I can walk there." "Then can I walk with you?" "Well, if you want. They live nearby." He kissed her, making her blush. "Dave, people are staring," she whispered, though she enjoyed his affection too much to care. "Oh," he said, "then I better stop." He winked. Resting his hand on the small of her back, he guided her to the boardwalk along the street. "I might as well say hi to Sally and Jenny. They are my sisters, after all." "Where to?" "Ever since Sally got the dog, Jenny's been taking Jeremy to her house," Mary began, "so I'd like to go there." He nodded. "I'm looking forward to watching the plowing and planting process," Mary told him, as he directed her steps away from a puddle as they crossed the street. "Does everyone get together to help with that?" "No," he replied. "I do that on my own. I'll grow some corn and beans this year." "I'll help in any way I can," she replied. "I reckon you would do that, but I can handle it." They stopped on the sidewalk, and he glanced at her and smiled. "However, I would love it if you would make me some of those pies and cookies." "Don't I already do that?" "I meant as the main course." She laughed. "Why, Dave, you are positively evil. I can't neglect making you a proper meal. But I will slip in a couple of snacks for you while you're in the field." They reached Sally's house and saw Greg and Jeremy playing with the big dog in the backyard. "Well, it's as you said," he replied. "Everyone's at Sally's." Once they reached the wooden fence, he called out to them. Sally and Jenny immediately stopped talking and ran over to them. "Mary, it's so wonderful to see you," Sally greeted as she opened the gate. She took her hand and let her in. "How are you feeling?" Jenny asked. "Very well," Mary answered. David cleared his throat. "I'm still your brother." Sally and Jenny jerked their heads in his direction, as if just noticing him. "Oh, we didn't forget you, David," Sally assured him. "We just wanted to make sure Mary's all right." He didn't look convinced, but grinned at Mary. "And you wonder why I keep saying they're trying to steal you away from me." "Well, we don't get to see her as much as you do," Jenny argued. "You get her all to yourself on the farm." "I've noticed you come by for several visits," he pointed out. Sally sighed. "You should be happy that we get along with her as well as we do. Some family members don't like each other. Marcia Brock's sister-in-law spreads false rumors about her." "Poor Marcia," Jenny added. "And she's a nice woman, too." "Oh, we should see Amanda while you're in town," Sally told Mary. "She has the day off from helping Richard with the customer orders." Amanda did the paperwork for her husband's business, so she spent most of her time working while her children were in school. "Mary," Dave called out, "I'll be by to pick you up in 2 hours." He paused, then asked his sisters, "Is that enough time?" "Yes," Sally promised. "We'll have her ready for you to take back so you can have her all to yourself again." The women and children went to Amanda's residence, and upon entering the cozy home, Mary caught sight of herself in the mirror. She didn't make it a habit of looking at her reflection. In fact, she did everything she could to avoid it. But today, she noticed something different about her face. It was odd, really. She knew that she hadn't changed, and yet she had. For some reason, she actually looked pleasant. "Mary, are you going to join us?" Sally asked, interrupting her thoughts. Mary blinked and turned to her friend. Yes, of course. She nodded and followed her to the parlor, where she sat next to Jenny, ate some cookies, drank coffee, and watched the children play with a set of toys that Amanda's children had outgrown. When it was close to 2 hours, Sally announced that they'd better leave before her brother went crazy searching for his wife. Though she teased Mary about it, Mary sensed that his sister was happy that her brother enjoyed a good marriage. On their way to Sally's house, a familiar voice called out to them. Yoo-hoo! Mary! May we have a moment of your time, dear? Mary turned her attention to Maureen Brown, who waved her hand in a friendly gesture. She sat with Connie, Cassie, and Neil's mother on the front porch of Connie's house. Mary hesitated to reply, since they had made it a point to snub Jenny any time they saw her. We'll take the children to the grass over there and let them run around, Jenny assured her, pointing to the park across the street. I won't be long, Mary replied before she climbed the steps of the porch. Cassie and Neil's mother, Gwendolyn, chatted while Maureen and Connie smiled at her. Good morning, ladies, Mary greeted. How are you doing, Mary? Connie inquired as she stood up from the rocker. I trust this pregnancy is progressing well? Appreciating the woman's concern, Mary nodded. I'm fine, thank you. Do you need to sit? Connie motioned to the empty rocker. No, thank you, Mary replied. You must be having an easier time of it than me, Cassie wearily commented. I feel like I'm ready to pop. She rubbed her large belly. We are very excited about the little one, Gwendolyn said, and patted Cassie's hand. Does someone need something? Mary looked at Maureen, since she had been the one who called her over. Oh, yes, Maureen said, as if recalling what was on her mind. There is a banquet to honor women at the church, and I wish to invite you. I was going to come out to your place later today, but since you're in town, I figured that I might as well ask you now. Mary shifted uncomfortably from one foot to the other, taking note of Sally and Jenny, who inspected the bugs that the boys had brought over to show them. Turning back to Maureen, she replied, Will they be invited? Well, Maureen began, Sally would be welcome to attend, of course. And Jenny? Despite Mary's best effort, she realized her voice slightly shook, for she knew the question would result in a confrontation. Jenny isn't one of us. The woman's tone remained firm, but gentle. Taking a deep breath and ignoring the pounding of her heart, Mary countered, Why not? She knew the answer, but she couldn't bear to see her best friend shunned any longer. Do I really need to say it? Maureen asked. Mary strengthened her resolve and blurted out, Have you ever done something you regret? Maureen appeared surprised by her question. She shrugged. Well, I suppose I have. And I have too, Mary replied. We have all done or said something we regret. It's just that what we've done didn't result in an out-of-wedlock birth. Unfortunately, we can't change the past, so we're stuck with the consequences of our actions, just as Jenny is. Mary took another deep breath. I think that if we are granted grace and mercy, in spite of those things, it makes our lives better. I care very much for Jenny, and I know she regrets what she did with Clyde. But what else can she do but give Jeremy the best home she can? What good will it do to constantly bring up the past? Connie cleared her throat and softly added, Well, she has lived a respectable life since then. Maureen's harsh expression changed into a thoughtful one. Well, I suppose everyone deserves a second chance. Mary breathed a sigh of relief. She feared that they would turn on her and shun her the same way that they had shunned Jenny. The two women looked at each other and nodded a silent agreement that Mary didn't understand until they walked over to Jenny and Sally. Cassie giggled. I just felt the baby kick. Gwendolyn smiled adoringly at her daughter-in-law. May I feel him? Oh, certainly, Cassie replied. Gwendolyn chuckled. He's a strong one, all right, just like my son. Neil will make a fine mother, Mrs. Craftsman. I can't wait to see him holding his baby. Why, it's only 2 months away before he makes his entrance into the world. What a thrilling experience, Gwendolyn said. I am so blessed. Again, something at the exchange bothered Mary, though she couldn't figure out why. Would you like to feel the baby kick so you know what to expect? Cassie asked Mary. Startled that the young woman even bothered to talk to her, Mary agreed and timidly rested her hand on Cassie's belly. The resulting bump beneath her hand sent a shiver of delight through her. She marveled that she would soon feel her own child move within her. Though she wasn't even showing it, she knew all was well. She hadn't experienced that certainty with her first pregnancy. Well, that's amazing, Mary whispered, pulling her hand away and subconsciously touching her belly. She couldn't imagine what she would look like when she came close to giving birth. So, have you and Neil picked out any names? Well, Cassie began, we'll name the baby Neil Jr. if we have a boy. And Gwenda, after Gwendolyn, she sweetly smiled at her mother-in-law, if we have a girl. Well, I am honored, Gwendolyn inserted. I think that's wonderful, Mary said. Have you and Dave picked any names? Gwendolyn wondered. Not yet, Mary replied. We're waiting until we get closer to the birth. I hope all continues to go well for you. Yes, Cassie quickly said. Motherhood is a lovely experience. Then she gave a slight pout. I do worry that the clothes I'm sewing for the baby won't turn out right. I fear that I'm a miserable failure, and the baby isn't even born yet. She glanced at Mary. A wave of dread washed over Mary. She knew what Cassie wanted. Had Maureen and Connie stuck around, then Cassie might not have gotten the chance to talk her into making baby's clothes. Oh dear, that is a problem. Gwendolyn brought her hand to her cheek and shook her head. Of course I can buy some blankets and clothes and cloth diapers, but there's nothing like a homemade garment. I wish I could sew something. But my hands, they're just not what they used to be. Mary anxiously licked her lips. Dave would be upset if she agreed to this. I hear that Jenny makes beautiful clothes, Mary inserted before they could ask her to do it. Oh, that is true. However, Mary's gut tightened as Cassie's pleading eyes met hers. I do so admire your handiwork. Why, the buttons you sewed to expand the waistline as my baby grew was a stroke of genius. If only Cassie was as easy to deal with as Maureen and Connie were. Perhaps if I explain to Jenny what you like, then it will be acceptable? Mary swallowed the nervous lump in her throat. Oh, I guess. Her countenance fell as she glanced at her belly and rubbed it. I don't wish to intrude, Gwendolyn spoke up. But Mary, you live closer than Jenny does, and it would be neighborly if you helped out. I'd be willing to pay you. Mary felt like shrinking under the woman's intense stare. She considered her options. She realized that she had every right to say no. Dave spent so much time with her that it wouldn't be easy to sew the clothes without him noticing it. And when he found out, he was bound to be furious. He couldn't stand Cassie, and Mary wasn't fond of her either. But how could she say no when the grandmother of the baby offered to pay her? Stiffly, she nodded her consent, and as she did, Cassie gave her a detailed description of what she wanted. As she dutifully listened, she could almost hear Dave griping about Cassie and how she was using her. And he would be right. Dave stood outside the mercantile with Joel. Leaning against the wooden structure with his hands in his pockets, he waited for the time when he could go to Sally's house. She would be upset if he went to get his wife before the full 2 hours were up. People strolled past them as they went in and out of the store. Presently, his brother animately described this morning of delivering medicine to the doctor. The boy dislocated his shoulder while he was playing a game, Joel stated. I showed up just as the doctor put it back in place. You should have been there. It was amazing. Dave inwardly grimaced. The thought of witnessing that event held little appeal, but he noticed that his brother seemed thrilled by it. Doesn't Dr. Adams need an assistant? Well, I did see a help wanted sign in his office. Nudging him in the arm, Dave pressed, "Why don't you offer your services?" "Well, I don't have any experience in the medical field." "The way I figure it," Dave began, "we all got to start somewhere. Wouldn't you like to accompany him on his errands?" "I would. That'd be more fun than picking up and delivering supplies all day." Joel rubbed his chin. "Apply for the position," Dave encouraged. "The worst that can happen is that he'll hire someone else." "Well, maybe I should." He nodded, staring off into space. Dave glanced at the clock on the bank across the street. He had 15 minutes left before he could pick Mary up. Ralph exited the mercantile and approached him as soon as he saw him. "Joel, I need you to deliver a barrel of pickles to the restaurant." Joel sighed, but politely said, "Right away, Mr. Linden." Dave realized at that moment that Joel didn't care much for this job. Working with a doctor definitely might suit him better. Ralph turned to Dave. "That wife of yours is popular with the women. I can't hold on to the pot holders, the towels, and the blankets that she makes. I'm glad you brought more in today. Here's the credit amount due to you for her making me such a nice profit." Dave took the piece of paper, his eyes widening in surprise. Joel leaned forward and whistled. "Wow, Dave, Mary is a keeper all right. I never imagined a woman could be so kind and talented. Well, she's kind of pretty, too. I hope I get a wife like her someday." He took his hat off and scratched his head. I can't recall why I thought Cassie was all that great. Mary's much better than her." He placed his hat on his head and looked at his boss. "I'll get this stuff delivered." Tipping his hat to them, he opened the door for an elderly couple before entering the store. Dave's heart swelled with pride at the fact that people thought so well of his wife. He knew that she was special, but it warmed his heart that others saw it too. Ralph peered through the window. "I better get back into the store. I see that a couple of people are ready to make a purchase. Saturday is my busiest day." "Mary and I will be in shortly," Dave replied. Dave knew it was pointless to shop until she accompanied him, or gave him a list, since he usually forgot something they needed. Even though he had 10 minutes to spare, he decided to go to his sister's residence. He hadn't taken 3 steps when he saw Mary appear from the next street. A grin formed on his lips as he picked up his pace. When he reached her, he gave her a light kiss on the cheek and took her by the arm to lead her to the mercantile. "Did you have a good visit with my sisters?" "I did," she said. "I can't believe they let you leave earlier than agreed," he replied. She shrugged. "Mrs. Brown and Mrs. James wished to spend some time with them." He shot her a curious look, almost tripping on the edge of the boardwalk. "Mrs. Brown and Mrs. James?" "Yes," she said. "They decided to invite them to the women's banquet coming up next weekend. I've been invited as well." "Mrs. Brown and Mrs. James?" He had to repeat the names to make sure that he'd heard right. She smiled at him. "Yes. Are you shocked?" "Well, actually, I am." "Anyone can have a change of heart," she told Dave. He began to shake his head when a thought occurred to him. "Did you have something to do with this change of heart?" Focusing on the ground to avoid stepping into a puddle, she admitted, "I might have said a few words, but it was up to them to act on it." They reached the mercantile entrance, so he held the door open for her. She stopped in the doorway and glanced back at him. "Do you have something you need to do?" "No," he said. "I already took care of repairing the wagon and making my rounds of the city folk. I'm all yours. Just throw whatever you want to buy into the basket and I'll tug it along." A worried frown momentarily crossed her face before she shrugged and turned her attention to the inside of the store. He worried about it, and just as he got ready to ask her what was bothering her, another customer brushed past them in a hurry to get out of the store. Dave immediately apologized, picked up a basket, and followed her, while she selected the ingredients that she planned to use to make her delicious meals. His mouth watered when he realized that she intended to make brown sugar candy. "Will you and Jasper hunt for meat?" she asked as she selected a meaty soup bone and placed it into the basket. "The stew tastes better with deer or rabbit meat in it." "I can take him hunting," Dave agreed. "When do you plan to make the stew?" "Monday." "Well, that should give me plenty of time to kill something and get it ready. I'll save any leftovers in the root cellar. We should get salt to preserve it. He grabbed a bag of salt and put it next to the flour. As they approached the fabric section in the back of the store, he noticed that her steps became hesitant. Turning to him, she asked, "Would you buy these items and put them in the wagon while I see if I missed anything?" He thought that was an odd request, since she had never asked him to do that before. But he obliged her. By the time he returned, he found her kneeling in front of the buttons. "I thought you were done making clothes," he said. He knelt beside her and saw that she had a basket full of materials. He smiled, his heart growing warm at the sight of the patterns that suited a baby. "I thought you wanted to wait until you felt the baby kick before making clothes and blankets." She appeared startled. He frowned. Hadn't she noticed him approach? "Oh, I thought I would keep busy." Her cheeks flushed red and her hand slightly shook as she threw several buttons on the pile of clothing supplies. "That should do it. Let's go." She grabbed the basket and bolted up. Something wasn't right. He quickly stood up and reached for her elbow to stop her. "You are making clothes and blankets for our baby, aren't you?" His voice remained low, so the 4 customers could not overhear them. The fact that she didn't answer right away notified him of her intention. Her eyes darted to the 2 women near them at the stationery display. "Who else did you run into today?" he softly demanded. She closed her eyes and exhaled. "Please, Dave, can we discuss this on the way home?" He gritted his teeth. "No, I won't have her using you again." He forced himself to remain calm, despite the anger surging through him. "Put them back," he said. Licking her lips, she opened her eyes and looked at him. "I don't really have a choice. Mrs. Craftsman was there when Cassie asked, and they backed me into a corner. Besides, Mrs. Craftsman offered to pay me." "You let me deal with them," he said. "Give me that basket." He held his hands out, waiting for her to comply. The moments spanned into what felt like an eternity before she finally gave it to him. He noticed that she dug her fingernails into the palms of her hands while he neatly put the items back to where they belonged. He couldn't believe the nerve of Cassie. As if she hadn't given Mary enough orders. Though Mary insisted she could say no, he didn't see this event happening. He would have to do it for her. Standing up and facing her, he realized that she was fighting back her tears. The anger drained out of him. He took her in his arms and held her against him. "You don't have to do anything you don't want to. I'll support you, Mary." She clung to him and buried her face in his shoulder. "I don't like to upset people." "I know," he said, "but you can't please everyone all the time. In the end, you have to do what's right for you." Ignoring the curious stares from the women, he gently kissed her forehead. "Do you want to make the baby clothes?" "No," she admitted. He breathed a sigh of relief. At least he hadn't overstepped his bounds. "I'm your husband. It's my job to make sure people don't take advantage of you. Will you let me do that for you?" She nodded. "Where is Cassie?" he asked. "She's at Mrs. James's house." Wrapping his arm around her waist, he led her outside. When she sat in the wagon, he told her to wait for him. She assured him that she would, so he left for Connie James's residence. By the time he stomped to Connie's, he relaxed enough so that he wouldn't yell at Cassie, who, predictably, was sitting in a chair. Mrs. Brown, Mrs. James, and Mrs. Craftsman surrounded her on the porch. They all seemed to adore her. What the attraction to Cassie was, he didn't know, nor did he care to find out. Without waiting for an invitation, he climbed the steps and waited for the young woman to acknowledge him. Surprised, Cassie and the other women turned to look at him. He took their sudden silence as his cue to speak. "Mary won't be making clothes for your baby." He didn't think it was possible, but Cassie's eyes grew even wider. "Well, I didn't press her to do it. She offered." Untouched by Cassie's show of sincerity, he continued in a firm voice. "I told Mary to put everything back. I'm her husband, and I'm putting my foot down." "I must say it's not very neighborly of you to do this," Mrs. Craftsman argued. With all due respect, ma'am, it's not neighborly to guilt-trip another woman into making clothes. Mary's already made your daughter-in-law plenty of clothes. She won't be making any more, he replied. Well, I said I would pay her, Mrs. Craftsman said. Certainly it's not a crime for a woman to make clothes. I made my decision, he replied. As her husband, I have the final say. Jenny does make some lovely clothes, Mrs. James told Mrs. Craftsman and Cassie. I'm sure she could use the money. She made the banner for the church on Douglas Street, Mrs. Brown added, nodding in agreement. We'll have to talk to her about it. Mrs. James and Mrs. Brown began talking about possible designs for the baby clothes. Mrs. Craftsman reluctantly agreed, while Cassie openly cried about how Dave was being mean to her. Rolling his eyes, he spun on his heels and left as the women comforted her. On his way down the front walkway, he bumped into Neil. Neil paused in mid-step as soon as he saw Dave glaring at him. Is something wrong? Yes, there is, Dave began. Mary is not Cassie's personal dressmaker. I caught my wife collecting materials to make your baby some clothes, and it was apparent that Mary was guilt-tripped into doing it. I refused to let her buy them. Mary's days of doing things for your wife are over. I recommend you talk to your wife about not using people. There are people in town who choose to make clothes for a living. Cassie is welcome to their services. Neil sighed. His shoulders slumped. I know what Cassie is doing, and I have talked to her. Neil's contrite response surprised him. Well, maybe she'll pay attention since I told her to. Dave tipped his hat to him and proceeded down the walkway so he could return to Mary. And that concludes Chapter 15.